Yep, he's doing all right.
Doing great.
Yep.
Obviously, I guess a big talking point, the Navy offense. I mean, is it? I guess there's probably usually a natural, tendency toward looking just at run defense stats to kind of gauge whether a team will be good against that offense. But is it almost maybe too complex or too different?
Well,
to
it still comes down to being able to defeat a block up front, maintain your gap responsibility. The thing that requires a little bit more here when you play a team like Navy is just from a discipline standpoint, making sure you're fit and where you're supposed to fit and playing who you're supposed to be playing in the option. But again, it still comes down to fundamentals. You got to be able to get off blocks. You got to be able to maintain your gap. You got to be able to get to the ball. And you got to be able to tackle and make plays in space. And be disciplined on the back end, know where your vision needs to be, and be able to handle some of the play action shots. I think where Navy's maybe a little bit more difficult than a lot of other option teams I've faced is they've got a dual threat quarterback. You got a guy that runs the option as well as he does, but he's not your typical option quarterback. That's a one-dimensional guy. He's a guy that throws the ball, throws it very effectively and very well. So, it's a little bit more difficult to prepare for a team like that.
It's a little more problematic too, in the sense that it's their opener.
It is.
They sometimes have wrinkles in their openers.
Yeah, the thing, Andy, what you don't know is what they've done in the off season.
Right.
They canceled their spring game. First thing we were looking for in the spring was a TV copy of their spring game. Found out that they canceled it. So everything we've done is off of last year's breakdowns. We've been able to break down all their games for the year ago, and then again, you get a lot of reports that they're trying to spread it out, become a little bit more of a, still run their option game, but do it out of maybe some different looks. So what you're trying to do there is research, some other schools in the country that run similar type offenses to see how they can kind of get to their concepts out of their run concepts out of a spread attack.
You mean like more wing back, more guys going in
just
the wing?
Flexing out more, where it looks like there's 4 wideouts on the field.
Gotcha.
That's where it's difficult. Is it's 2 weeks in a row. You had Indiana State where you had a new staff, and again we'd studied 4 different offenses, and now you just, without having a chance to see what they've done preseason wise, you got to be able to make some adjustments. But again, they've had a lot of success at what they've done. I cannot imagine they'll go too far away from what's made them successful in years past.
How important is it to play well on first and second down with a team that loves to go on fourth down?
The thing, again, you got to have a little bit of patience too. 3 yards for them is a positive play. If they're able to stay on 3 yards, and if they get into 4th and short, they're going to go for it. So you've got to be patient. You got to be able to create negative plays. And the thing too we've talked about is that when you make contact with the running back, you've got to eliminate the yards after contact. And a couple times a year ago, where maybe it's second and long, and we've got a guy at the point of attack with a chance to make a play, where if you make that tackle, it's going to be 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. Well, you let them fall forward for 2 or 3 extra yards, they're staying on track. So we've got to be very good in space. We've got to be a great tackling team this week.
How much carryover have you seen from the guys that experienced this last year, basically?
We started running it 2 springs ago. So again, the guys that have been around, and we've talked to other people, and we've researched some other things. So again, I think we've got a few more wrinkles than maybe we did a year ago. But when you play a team 2 years in a row, I think our kids have a little bit better feel for. The hard thing to do is to demonstrate, to be able to get that speed, to be able to get the timing, of the option game. It's hard to simulate that from a scout team. And I think our kids understand, a little bit better, at least the kids that play, just how low and hard that offensive line comes off the ball. Just how well of a job those slots do when they cut. Things like that, I think we've got a little bit better feel for.
Just the fact that these guys have seen it in a game now beyond just practicing it.
Exactly. And like I said, we've repped. You start working in the spring and it carries over throughout 2-a-day camp. It's a team when you play someone like this. Again, it still comes down, like I said earlier, you've got to be able to play the basic fundamentals of defense. But when you practice for a team like this throughout the spring and throughout 2-a-day camp, it's a hard team to get ready for if you only put 1 week of preparation. And we feel like we've put some time and effort into it.
You do have a lot of veterans, but you have some young guys out there too. I mean, TJ leads your tackles on Thursday. You're going to have to make adjustments in the game.
Correct.
How are those young guys taking coaching?
They've been
adjustments in the game?
I think pretty good. I think one of the things we were disappointed with coming out of last week was there's still just too many missed assignments. Missed alignments, missed assignments there. And those are things that going into that game we knew we were going to have to make some adjustments because they were going to give us some looks that maybe we
hadn't
prepared
seen.
for. And again, that's what's going to happen here this week. We may get some different looks that maybe we haven't prepped our kids on, and we've got to be able to make adjustments. So, every now and then you may have a missed assignment, but it's our job as coaches to get it corrected. And again, we've got to do a better job at that.
It's kind of a simplistic question, but I mean, is that kind of maybe the next step for some of those freshmen that we'll probably see a lot this year? Is just kind of getting the details down, being able to.
And again, those young kids have done a good job. For the most part, they've come in, they've picked up our system. And it's just sometimes you may see something new that maybe you haven't shown them. And again, it's something new that you may just have to, in between the series there, you got to get it fixed, and you got to say this is what they're doing, this is how you got to relate to it. But like I said, we'd like to think there's a progression that the kid has a visual key, and he should know how to fit and react off of that particular key. So, but there's always going to be maybe a formation or a wrinkle or something that maybe you hadn't shown them that you've got to get adjusted.
What are your thoughts on how TJ played Thursday?
I think he played well. He played extremely hard. There's some things he's got to get better, but I think just the toughness, physicality, his effort's been very good. And again, we expect him to continue to improve just like everyone else. But for a young guy, for a true freshman, he's a little bit more mature than your typical freshman.
Is there any apprehension with playing some of those young guys against what's basically not your normal defensive scheme, or are you just going to let them roll?
Again, I think when you defend a team like this, too, you don't want to vary too far from your base. So I think there are a lot of concepts that are still similar. So again, we haven't deviated too far from maybe.
Well, Coach Wilson talked about that a little bit yesterday. He said, nowadays, the way football's being played, I see defensive staffs making more adjustments or more detail-oriented than offensive staffs. We've actually tried to simplify. We've actually kind of tried to streamline. So talk about that a bit.
We have. Again, I think you just see so many different looks. I think when you look at the NFL, again, I think the NFL's starting to change a little bit more now. But like in years past, it used to be offenses were going to do this pretty much on a consistent basis, week in and week out. I think you get in the collegiate ranks and even at the high school ranks, or you just you go from what you saw last week, spread attack, to all of a sudden you go to a bone attack. It has spread concepts built in, and you get into 2 weeks, you're going to have Missouri. That's going to be a lot of empty and up tempo type. It's just, I think there's so many more different things that you're seeing from different offenses here that I don't think you can do too much on defense. And again, I think it's always going to come down to your fundamentals, but I think if you try to do too much schematically, then you're spending too much time on just you're spending too much time on trying to teach a scheme instead of working on fundamentals and techniques. So I think that's one of the things I feel like we've done. Going into year 3 is we've simplified a lot of things. We're playing a lot more base than we have in the past, and again, I think that's helped for us to have tried to. Well, when we played Indiana State last week, if we would have tried to match all the personnel when they're running guys on and off the field, you can't do it. And I think that's one of the best things that we've done. Just keep our base out there, and that's what you work, and that's what you play. And we'll get into some of the nickel stuff in third down.
How much is, I guess, physical development maybe allowed you to do that? I mean, in the sense of, now you got a guy maybe like Fareese Harden, you don't have to pull out
and that helps. And again, when you got a guy like Flo started as a safety. Flo's used to playing in space. Great thing with Flo is, again, he's gotten bigger, he's gotten stronger, he's become a more physical player. The Flo can play, whether it's 2 back sets, 3 back sets, or 1 back sets. He can be an every down linebacker. And when you've got the flexibility with a guy like that allows you to play a lot more base. If you've got a guy that's a little bit more one-dimensional, that he's strictly a box player, and all of a sudden you see a spread team, he's not used to being out there in space, then you've got a little bit of a liability out there. So that's a huge advantage, having Flo and some of the other guys we've got playing that spot.
Thanks, guys.
Is that it?
Thanks.
All right, guys. Okay, we'll see you.